17,000 feet. He's on his final approach into the landing. Then you ought to have a beautiful sight from there.
1.5 Gs on the heading alignment cone.
There's just a little bit of fog rolling on the runway now, but it is quite clear. There is not a cloud, as you can see.
And he's slowing down using ailerons and spoilers, just like any commercial airliner would.
Vance should be lined up about this point on final approach, about 22-degree glide angle.
12,000 feet. 7 miles from the
Challenger Houston,
runway.
look good rolling out on final, calm surface wind.
Airspeed, 184 knots. 284 knots.
This landing is really the final operational test of this vehicle, a landing in Florida.
Challenger now visible at
After this, it will truly be an operational spacecraft.
6,000 feet altitude, 4 miles range, sync rate 170 feet per second.
It's under a minute until touchdown.
Then it never fails to impress, even sitting here watching it on television. It's a very, very predominant, impressive feeling you get watching the Challenger come back home, especially after seeing those spacewalks. It's the same vehicle, remember.
And this, Gene, this is very much like the landing of this first Columbia in California, because it is new. It's never been done here before. He is really coming in smoothly now.
The landing gear will be the next major event here. There it is.
There's the gear.
Not bad timing.
Oh, is that beautiful.
Looks like he's got the runway made.
He's right on top of it, right down the center line.
That's a 1,000-foot marker. He's landed about 3,000 feet down the runway. Perfect.
Touchdown, 6 seconds ahead of time, according to the clock.
Space Shuttle's first Florida landing.
A lot of happy people back there. You can see the humidity come off the wings as he's rolling out. That's the water.
It's still foggy here, Gene, a little bit. Very humid.
Looks like he's going to have
right in front of us.
Start braking momentarily, around 150 knots or so. Range look fairly rapid. Hold on the runway.
He really makes it look easy. Makes it look just like a landing at any old airport. And there goes the convoy right after Challenger. 140 people going out with their special equipment to make sure the vehicle is safe, to get rid of any possible toxic fumes, poisonous gases that may be in the vicinity. That's good news. Steady braking. That's what they were a little concerned about.
Like the swallows coming back to Capistrano, this really completes the circle.
You realize, obviously you realize, Gene, they are only about 3 miles, 4 miles from the launch pad. That is some record. 8 days in space, right back where they started from.
And that ends all the fears and apprehensions then about whether that 15,000-foot runway surrounded by swamp, whether you could get the shuttle down.
Well, this really puts to rest all the fears, right, Jules, that anybody had about whether they could make it here or not.
And if we get it,
Okay, that was so nice. I think we're going to look at it again. We always like to look at landings and launches more than one time on the day they happen. Here we go. Final approach. This is a replay. And when the Challenger landed, ground control said, "Welcome home, fantastic job." They weren't kidding.
Then that picture is just, it's almost like someone's imagination. It's so pretty.
Look at that angle down. And momentarily, Vance Brand will flatten it out and drop the gear. He doesn't really do a flare, as we call it, in small planes or fighters. He steadily brings the nose up, having bled off most of the speed, then drops the gear at 400 or 500 feet altitude.
Lynn, it's obvious now, I think all the folks viewing can see how swampy the area is around the Kennedy Space Center there.
Still nominal.
And that big pre-flare right there where he starts bleeding off the last bit of airspeed. And as Jules said, right around 300-400 feet, the pilot, Bob Gibson, will put the wheels down. There it goes right there.
Hooter.
Yeah, Hoot as he's known around the office. And Vance slowed down to around 190 knots in that vicinity for a final touchdown.
Touchdown.
Well, Challenger is home. Challenger is in Florida. Challenger at the moment is at the end of the runway waiting to be serviced, and the astronauts will be coming out, in about 45 minutes or so from now. We will probably show you lots more pictures and tell you more about it when our coverage of the Space Shuttle Challenger continues in a moment. Well, we are back in Florida. Challenger is back in Florida, and this is the end of an extraordinarily successful mission, a bittersweet mission, if you will. There were some problems, but first there were the successes. A terrific launch. Last Friday, no weather problems, no mechanical problems. It was what they called, I think, the smoothest ever. And then, of course, there was that absolutely fantastic spacewalk, the first of two. That one took place on Tuesday morning, and that was the day that Bruce McCandless and Bob Stewart tried out for the first time their jet backpacks. Right now, you're seeing, I believe that is Bruce McCandless. On top of his helmet was a camera. On his back was a 300-pound jet backpack. They've been working on this for more than 15 years, and it works perfectly. Let's listen to Bruce McCandless.
Bruce, when you put in a prolonged translation, the thing shudders and rattles and shakes. Just for the record, I don't see any stars out here.
And, Bob, we're not going to pay much attention to you for a little while here while we watch Bruce go out and back.
Oh, now, here's a different perspective on the orbiter.
Okay, Bruce, we have a good shot of the payload bay.
Hey, this is Steve.
McCandless at a distance of about 80 feet.
The TV ranger yet?
Not yet. He'll be going about twice that far out on this exercise.
Yep. All right.
McCandless and his manned maneuvering unit constitute a separate spacecraft of their own now.
Well, you may get the name of the world's fastest human being going along there at 4 miles a second, Bruce.
This record will only stand, I guess, for the next hour or so.
Well, those two spacewalkers are back to Earth now. Their vehicle is Challenger. They're sitting at the end of the runway, and at the moment the astronauts are inside throwing switches, cutting off power supplies, things like that, and there is a convoy outside of the vehicle which is trying to make it all safe to be sure everything is okay, and the astronauts will be sitting in their orbiter for about another 45 minutes or so. The idea is be sure everything is okay, and they should get their land legs back. If you'll recall, the last time Challenger landed, when the guys came down the stairs afterwards, they looked a little bit shaky. I think they want to give them a chance to get back to Earth for real. Well, a successful landing, a successful launch, a gorgeous spacewalk or two, but there were some mishaps on this mission, some problems, some things that went wrong that were not entirely in NASA's control. Let's take a look at some of them to remember this mission. The first problem was the Westar satellite, the one that was deployed for Western Union. It got out of the orbiter okay, but it turns out that its upper stage motor probably misfired. And Westar, which was supposed to go to 22,000 miles, only landed much shorter of that. It's just useless, unfortunately, cannot be used at all. The second problem, a balloon, a 2-yard in diameter balloon that they deployed in order to practice some rendezvous techniques. Well, the balloon just burst. That one is on NASA's ledger because that was their balloon that they had bought. Third problem was the second satellite. It, too, misfired, deployed beautifully from Challenger. All the telemetry indicated that the astronauts did everything right, but somehow that upper stage motor seems not to have fired right. It is also in what is called a useless orbit. They have contact with both this satellite, which is for the government of Indonesia, and that Western Union satellite, but they're no good. So those were the two big disappointments of this mission. But now that we see Challenger on the runway, certainly that and the spacewalk seem to compensate for quite a lot of that. Gene, you have seen Challenger Challenger. Jules, you've seen Challenger sitting on the runway before. Does it look any different to you after this long mission?
Looks better than before liftoff to me, Lynn.
And, you know, in spite of the disappointments of the flight, the infallible performance of those backpacks and the confidence that has been gained by bringing for the first time the shuttle back to its birthplace, effectively its launch site of the Kennedy Space Center, I think are going to be overriding factors for the future of this program.
Okay, Gene, we have all seen the Challenger now a number of times. The astronauts have done very well, but there's a very special group of youngsters to whom it might have a very special meaning. These are second graders from the Apollo Elementary School here in Florida, Titusville, Florida, right just a couple of miles away. And they have a rather creative teacher, and her name is Roseanne Goodwin, and Ms. Goodwin asked her students to come up with their own version of what a shuttle mission really is.